Good afternoon. We're back to Chicken Boxx. It is noon. It is morning time in LA, and at night somewhere across the the pond or overseas or in Africa, it is nighttime. Welcome to today's show. I'm Kevin Impeccable, your host or co-host, along with Misha Green and Dr. Draper, joining us today as we talk about. I was talking to my dad earlier. He didn't even know what it was, but Black people versus cancel culture. What is this cancel culture? We're going to get into it in a little bit. We have some wonderful guests joining us, but I represent the Gen X's. All the Gen X's up there, you know who you are. You know who we are. You know how we do it and how we did it and how we continue to do it. Misha Green coming in strong on a millennial. How you feeling this morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever state of mind you're in today?
Feeling, I feel like it's always morning, right? It's always morning until our 4:30 Afro meetings. Then I know it's afternoon. But I'm feeling good. I am super thankful to be alive and enjoy another day of Chicken Boxx. I love that I get to represent for our millennials and our millennial, or am I a boomer millennial? Which way do we say it? I would be a boomer millennial because I'm a millennial who appreciates the boomer values. So I'm a boomer millennial. And yeah, I'm really happy. I'm warning y'all now, I have a little cough. It is just a cough. I've tested negative twice for COVID, but I will be drinking my water and I will always mute if I have to cough. But I'm just letting y'all know now.
Thank you. You think we can catch it through the screen? Anyway, Dr. Draper,
Yes,
how are you this morning?
I'm I'm well this afternoon. Good to see you, Impeccable. Hey there, Misha, and hello to everybody who's watching by way of Facebook. And I don't know about. We're also on YouTube. Kevin, is it both
Absolutely.
YouTube and Facebook? And so, Misha's representing the Boomer Millennials, and I'm representing the Millennial Boomers. And so, boomers that think like millennials sometimes,
There we
but
go.
but appreciate millennials and what they bring to the table.
Absolutely. Good morning, everybody. If you've never witnessed or been on the Chicken Boxx, if you've been to Baltimore in the Baltimore area, you may have tried a Chicken Boxx before, and that's full wings and fries. It could be a little greasy situation with salt, pepper, and ketchup, but it is delicious. But today, this is where we come speak our truth. We get on the box. Now, it might not be everybody's truth, and we're talking about Black people versus cancel culture. So you might get canceled for just stepping on the box, but it is your time to get on the box and speak your truth as you see it. We break stereotypes in the African American community, and we're broadcasting on the Afro American newspapers platform. 129 years of informing, inspiring, and educating Africans, people of color, Black folks, whatever you want to say. We've been moving the culture for a lot of years, everybody. But this is Black people versus cancel culture. Whew. Has this become a popular thing over the last day? As you know, this is the Afros. We're still here month, mind, body, and spirit, and we're looking at the effects on cancel culture on individuals' morale, their choices, and their health, as well as the impact on the culture. Cancel culture is a newish catchphrase that has become popularized through use of modern and action on social media. So I was thinking, as I was doing my morning meditation and reading today, and it was about, when Jesus was coming in, and they didn't like how popular he was getting, and they just had to do something. But it's like, this guy is starting to change the culture, and so they decided. I said, man. So I like how I said cancel culture is kind of newish, but they've been trying to cancel people because they didn't think the same way that they thought for years. So Misha, come on in, join the conversation, and tell us. Dave Chappelle is hot on the in the news right now. What's going on with this cancel culture?
Yes. So Dave Chappelle is not the first celebrity to be canceled or for people to work to get canceled. However, most recently, Dave Chappelle is who we think about when we're thinking cancel culture. The comedian has become the next victim, if you will, of cancel culture with his new special, The Closer. And in fact, he knew that it was going to be controversial and he'd probably get canceled from the rhetoric used in the Netflix special. Hence, he's calling the show, or he called the show, The Closer, because he knew he could potentially get canceled from it. And so some trans and LGBTQIA plus activists are angry at Chappelle's stand-up because he brings up jokes about the transgender community. And Chappelle and trans rights activists have been going back and forth for a couple of years now based off of some of his jokes in previous Netflix specials. But this last iteration of his Netflix specials has trans Netflix employees staging walkouts, holding protests. There are people just going against Chappelle in all ways. His new documentary, which the Afro covered in September, so go back and look at it. I went to the premiere of it here in DC at the Kennedy Center, but the documentary, which is excellent, is being pulled from a lot of festivals and things like that. And mind you, the documentary has nothing to do with the Netflix special. I want to make that very clear. So it's unfortunate because everything learned in that is really important. However, now that's being pulled from different movie and screening festivals because it's Dave Chappelle. And so in today's episode, we're going to not only talk about Chappelle, but other artists whose careers have been affected by cancel culture, and how behind the scenes there are folks working to control how the public receives works of an artist and all around avoiding cancel culture. So we have two guests that will help unpack cancel culture from a public relations point of view. So I guess we can just go ahead and bring them on now. I'm very excited. I love them both. They are huge lifesavers to me and the work that we do here at the Afro and getting coverage surrounding some of their clients here in the DMV. So, as I said, they're in large part responsible for a good chunk of our coverage that gets to you all, not only in our Legacy edition, but online and, of course, broadcasted in Afro Live interviews. Our first guest I'll introduce is Camille Davis, because she's to my left. That was hard to do because I'm using my right hand to do that. But yes, and Camille is founder of Montage PR. She's also an occasional freelance writer for the Afro. You guys may have seen her name all up in the paper before. And we also have Whitney Stringer. Oh, am I doing this right? Okay, now I really don't know how to do it. This is hard. There we go. And we have Whitney Stringer, who is the founder of Whitney Stringer PR. And they both are just huge, huge assets to my life, but also just killing it in the publicity world, not only in the DMV, but nationwide. So I'm really, really proud of them and super happy that they could take some time to join us today. So hi, Whitney. Hi, Camille. Air hugs to you guys.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us.
If you could take a second, if you just tuned in, this is Black People versus Cancel Culture. We have two dynamic women sharing with us. We have Whitney and Camille, who's going to really, they know how to make or break you, or help protect your image or your so-called brand, and they do it well. So why don't you just, so we can just bring everybody into the circle, each one of you just take a minute and just say what you do and maybe some clients that you handle. We'll start with you, Camille.
Hi, everyone. First and foremost, I have to give a big we are to my Penn State sister, Whitney. That's kind of like a thing that we do. I just can't see her without saying we are.
Penn State.
Penn State. Thank you. So Thank you. We have a call and response thing that's kind of like near and dear for all the alumni. So thank you all for having me again today. My name is Camille Davis, Montage PR. And after, I would say, kind of the death of Nipsey Hussle, I really focused and rebranded my business to focus on Black-owned businesses, brown-owned businesses, and women-owned businesses, particularly small businesses, especially in the DMV area, because I feel like those small businesses help our communities to thrive. So that's been really my particular focus for the last like 2 or 3 years.
Welcome to the Chicken Boxx, and thank you for joining us. Whitney Stringer of Whitney Stringer PR. Welcome again. Just give us a little bit. I guess y'all can go back and forth with your Penn State call. Go right ahead.
Well, thank you, Camille, for the blue and white love to get started. So glad to be sharing the stage with you today. So yeah, with Whitney Stringer PR, kind of similar to Camille, we also have a lot of focus on making sure that we're giving a voice to underrepresented, great people around the community and around the country. So working locally with some brands that you might know, like D-City Smokehouse, known for the great barbecue in town, or ones like the recently opened The Gathering Spot, a community dedicated, a private membership club dedicated to Black culture. And then also working with some larger brands like Amtrak or the U.S. Census Bureau, also making sure that they are speaking to our communities. So I get to do a lot of great work locally and nationally.
Absolutely. Let's jump into it. If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Boxx, where you get your chance to jump up on the box and speak your truth. It's called Getting on the Box. We're talking about cancel culture. Now, some people know what it is. Some people are tuning in for the first time today as we dive into what this cancel culture is. But let's hop on the box, everybody, real quick. And just what comes to mind when you consider cancel culture? Who wants to go first?
I'll just jump on the box and start us off. Well, okay, 30 seconds on cancel culture. I think what comes to mind for me is call out, which we'll get to talk about in a second, which the two are different. Call out culture and cancel culture is different. But for me, the call out aspect, I think, sort of leads to the canceling piece. And so even letting folks know that publicly that you have an issue with something is sort of, I think, starts the canceling piece. Also, I think a lot of misinformation plays a major role in cancel culture. And I think that social media, if we did not have social media the way that we do and so accessible and used as a source of news in many ways for folks, that we would not have the cancel culture that we do now. So I'm going to hop off the box because I want to hear from our experts. But that's what comes to mind when I think cancel culture.
Yeah, to me, cancel culture kind of morphed. It had its phases, right? I think that we kind of really saw it with this phrase woke, right? When the phrase, oh, I'm woke, became a big thing. And then being woke kind of metamorphed itself into this accountability culture, that you're talking about, Misha. So now we're in this cancel culture, right? And now I fear toxicity. I worry about mental health of these people that are being called out for cancel culture. I'm almost for fear of the downward spiral of the individual. So I love that we're having this conversation today because I'm not in fact sure that we are examining how individuals and their well-being is impacted, by this cancel culture. Absolutely. Let alone, their brand.
Absolutely. Whitney?
Yeah, I would say that I think that a lot of times cancel culture is such a knee-jerk reaction to things. We see something, we experience something, and then that's we just kind of like jump on it. And like Camille was saying, it really has morphed over the past couple of years, but now we're seeing it just done so quickly. I also think that it's really not good for our culture. I'm certainly a publicist, but I am a woman of faith first. And think, the reference that you were making to, Jesus had second chances. We all are given second chances. And so I think that the way that it's being used today is actually pretty sad and limits the amount of learning experiences that could be if we weren't canceling people.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Dr. Draper?
Well, when I think about cancel culture, in addition to everything that everyone has said, it has now seeped beyond or gone beyond the celebrities. And so beyond people who are influencers. And so the impact, for example, on young people, the shaming, and the suicide rates of young people going through the roof because of the sensitivities to what their peers think and what people think about them, what they say about them, especially on social media, whether or not it's true. It's a big issue that's gone beyond where it was. There's always been a cancel culture, but as Misha said, social media then has accelerated the how quickly it gets out there. And it started off, it seems, around some of the social justice issues like the Me Too movement and things like that, but it's now gone to a whole different level. And just a thought that somebody can cancel your your reputation, can cancel you out because they don't like something that you say. What happens to the flip side of that? Do I not have the right to say what I feel about a particular thing? So I think it's just taken on a whole new life. But really, when you think about teenagers who are already very, very sensitive to what you say, if you say good morning, some of them want to say good night, right? But they're very, very, and so all this body shaming and things that are going on through social media to cancel out a young person just because you don't like them.
Man, that's crazy. I think about it as like, I hate that brown squirrel that always crawls into my attic and I can't get out. It's always just up the tree. Every time that I'm coming from a place, he's breaking nuts. Every time I can't stand that squirrel. Can I cancel squirrels? Is that on the is that on the list, everybody? I'm just saying, this is Black people versus cancel culture. This is a conversation. I wonder, when did a generation become so sensitized to what others said to them to the point where it affected them? I mean, where did it come? It's like a different generation, because when we grew up, you could talk about, I mean, it was some fights if you talked about somebody's mama, but you just joned on people and you went there. And I have friends that we still go there now when we get together, and it's just, but it's all in love. It's never a point where, oh, you're a Republican, I hate you. You're like, you're my best friend all my life, and then now you're a Republican, or you don't want to get the vax, so I'm canceling you. Mm-hmm. Have you heard?
Yeah, it's a public call out, Kevin, when the person doesn't have an opportunity to respond.
Absolutely. All right. So we always talk about steroids. Let's get maybe I didn't say hi to everybody. Hey, Crystal, Bonnie, Lenore, Rico, Diane, Shay, Dorothy, Jewel, Chris. Thank you for chiming in. Put your definition of cancel culture, or have you heard of it, or is this new to you, or were you aware of it, or are your children dealing with it? My children told me I was shaming one time just because I repeated something that somebody else said on television, but now I'm shaming. I said, wait a minute, I'm shaming you to go clean your room. That's what I'm shaming. But anyway, this is Black people versus cancel culture. And do we have a clear definition yet? Is there a clear definition of cancel culture before we just go further, or we say what we thought about it?
Well, so Dr. Draper has a definition of cancel culture, I believe, or of cancel versus call out culture. Do you want to share that, Dr. Draper?
Sure. So call out culture, usually, if I understand it correctly, you calling out someone for doing something wrong, and you give them an opportunity to, since we were talking biblical earlier, repent. You give them an opportunity to respond. It could be a healthy dialogue around that, or to say, I'm sorry, that type of thing. So I'm calling you out for a wrong. You're coming back and you are acknowledging that, and you are trying to right the wrong. Okay. Cancel culture, I'm just canceling you. I heard what you said, Chappelle. I don't like what you said about that community. So I'm on a crusade, and we're going to just go to your employer, go to the network, go to Netflix, go wherever we can go, and cancel you out in that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the difference between calling out and canceling.
I think one thing also that's important to think about in terms of timing and the popularity of cancel culture is how much the pandemic really exasperated things, right? So where so much of our social world was happening, offline previously, this past nearly 2 years, so much of our social interactions have been online. And so, I saw that Twitter usage is up by 25%, or at least it was last fall compared to the year before, 75% increase on Facebook apps in terms of usage. So we are conversing even more now these days online. And so where there might have been, more time and more forgiveness when things are happening in person and whatnot, the fact that things are all happening online and happening so quickly, we're quicker to do things like cancel instead of call out, which we might have done, previous to the pandemic or when there was less social media use.
I think that's a great point.
Absolutely. People are saying, I don't know what it really is. Hey, Lenora, they're trying to get an understanding of what cancel culture is. Sometimes it is can be an opinion, right? It can be how you feel about a person. But when does it culturally, does it become a movement when other people like pile on? Like you could do something, like for me personally, when the R. Kelly tape first came out and he said it wasn't him, I knew exactly it was him because I could hear the voice and I saw it. But it was super disturbing. In my mind, I canceled him. I didn't go on social media and say, hey, you guys, let's all huddle up and cancel them together. But it did happen because, decisions have consequences eventually. And, what's done in the dark eventually, hopefully, gets brought to some kind of light, which we believe justice is being served for that situation. But me, in my mind, stopped listening to his music. But that was my own thing. Is that considered cancel culture?
You canceled him personally. I think R. Kelly is actually a perfect example of cancel culture and how it has evolved, because we didn't even have MySpace when R. Kelly's initial video came out. There was no sort of way to further publicly shame him unless your cousin had the bootleg video, and then people talked about it amongst themselves and on the radio and things to that nature. But he was completely canceled. His music was taken off of the airwaves in most places and on these apps specifically due to social media. He was canceled because of the Mute R. Kelly movement, which was a hashtag. And I think, often in these cancel culture conversations, sometimes it's not a necessarily a just reason why this person is fully canceled. I think his situation, it was a really great way of starting the process again to get him to where he is now, which is in prison, and the R. Kelly situation, I think, is a perfect example of how social media and cancel culture helped save people's lives in that regard. But that's not always the case. I'm curious. I see the wheels turning for Camille right now.
Oh, I'm obsessed with cancel culture, you guys. I even think back to, when was the first time where I really saw cancel culture trying to, get its rise? And I think to Isaiah Washington. Do you guys remember? I think it was like 2007, Grey's Anatomy, where he made anti-gay comments, right? So here's where a Whitney or Camille steps in. Immediate crisis management. We need to make a statement. We're going to send our client to rehab. We're going to show the conversation, the learning, right? Going back to what we were talking about earlier, what Whitney mentioned. That was a way to show the transition, that he went through this process. He showed empathy that I feel like a lot of modern day cancel culturees may not show, right? And I think that maybe that's the difference, because could we just send a celebrity to therapy and then boom, here their career is back? We haven't so much seen that really since that incident, right? The next incident that comes to mind is Chrisette Michele, when she performed at the Trump inauguration. Black culture immediately. We don't support Trump. Why would you, as an African American woman, go and perform? Was the money that good, sis? Right? That was kind of like the question from the culture. But going to Dr. Draper's point, she had no platform to redeem herself, right? So maybe also that was kind of Twitter, Facebook years, but again, Instagram wasn't as prevalent then. So I think that it's so interesting because I follow these waves, right? But now when you bring up the R. Kelly, it's still so funny to me how, the facts could be clear, but even the people are divided. I'm not sure if cancel culture is doing us any justice or if it's just merely dividing us as a society.
Boom. If you just tuned in, you're jumping in. I love you guys' comments. I'm reading them as I go along. Can't post everyone, but this is Black people versus cancel culture. How are we handling? What is it? Have you heard of it? Are your kids experiencing it? Are they doing it? Are you doing it? And I think everybody does it at some point. If I was an alcoholic, I might want to cancel alcohol. I might want to cancel drug use. I might, but when does it become a part that it hurts somebody else's mental, right? When it affects somebody else's self-esteem. Whitney, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think as much as this conversation is becoming more in the forefront, so like you say, is the conversation about mental health and just Black wellness in general. I know, Camille and I both do a lot of work in that space. And I think that there's a lot more attention to making sure that there's wellness within the Black community. And so I think that they really can be items of opposition of, how cancel culture can really be affecting people and their well-being and whatnot, and at what expense are people being canceled. I think if we're thinking about things more wholly, there might be, like I was mentioning before, it really could be really great teachable moments. The great example of Isaiah Washington. Okay, he said these terrible remarks. What can we then do to have him have a better relationship with that community, or instead show where he learned? So I think that that's in general a better approach, and certainly how I work with my brands and clients, as we all make missteps and whatnot. But the idea is, okay, the best approach is really, how can I step away from this better than I was before? But of course, you need the audience to be receptive to that conversation.
Absolutely. There's a lot of stereotypes out there on these quote unquote, air quote, digital streets, we like to say. Misha, what are you hearing out there about this topic, about cancel culture? And I know these are not the opinions of the Afro-American. I've got to talk to our lawyer. These are not the opinions of the Afro-American newspaper or the affiliate companies. But Misha, what's happening on these digital streets?
Yeah, the digital streets are busy with cancel culture. I for this time around, I just wanted to take some direct quotes that I found off of Twitter and Instagram, just specifically about cancel culture, not necessarily even a person. I see Craig in the comments said, "What about Dave?" Craig, you're a little late. We talked about Dave, but we'll get back to him because obviously his situation is perfect to talk about it. But yeah, the things that folks have to say about cancel culture on the digital streets is serious. So as Kevin said, these are not our opinions, but most of these are direct quotes. So let me just go ahead and hop in. The cancel culture folks seem real quiet about the legal attempts to investigate and ban work by Black writers in schools. This is a direct quote. Netflix doesn't do cancel culture. Another direct quote. The cancel culture is so toxic that people often forget that there's always room to educate first, rather than arbitrarily decide it's over for someone's career. Caitlyn Jenner, you guys may have heard about this tweet. It's been catching a lot of traction over the past couple of days. But Caitlyn Jenner said directly about Dave Chappelle, Dave Chappelle is 100% right. This isn't about LGBT. She meant the LGBTQ movement. It's about woke cancel culture run amok, trying to silence free speech. We must never yield or bow to those who wish to stop us from speaking our minds. Another is cancel culture doesn't exist. And we talked about this already, but call out versus cancel culture is a thing. So those are some stereotypes, and most of them are direct quotes. I see Jules' comment about the Karen culture is outrageous. So that we have to have a whole nother episode dedicated to the Karens of the world for sure. I think Black people versus Karens would be an amazing episode. So thanks, Jules. But we wouldn't even have the term Karen, right? We wouldn't be canceling white women to and fro and giving them a new name.
Give them a quick Karen 30 seconds in case people get lost.
Okay, Karens, for all those out there, Karens are white women who work to make Black people's lives miserable. And I actually have a whole article that I did in our first, I think we're still here, special edition about Karens and the difference between Karens. I can't even remember the other term for white women, but they're like, they're right underneath the Karens. You know, they still are being racist, but they're not trying to make people's lives miserable or get us in jail or kill us. And then you have Chads, which are the white men who are male versions of Karens. But basically, they are white people who work to make Black people's lives miserable and go out of their way to do so. And we all know a Karen, or we've all seen Karens in the world. But that term came about solely because of social media, solely because we were out here trying to get white women to lose their jobs after they worked to mess up our lives. And so that, I think the Karen and Chad conversation is a complete offset of cancel culture, not necessarily a negative thing, in my humble opinion. Yeah.
All right, well, maybe Karen and Chad versus Black people will come on one time. But Whitney or Camille, did any of those? Have you guys heard those stereotypes or those comments or any ones that kind of resonate with you?
Yeah, I was going to offer that, the other side of it is we're talking about the toxicity and the really negative side of cancel culture. But at the same time, as, Misha was talking about, there's also instances where people need to be called out and to be held accountable. And so while canceling them might not be necessarily the right way, like if you all remember the story of Amy Cooper, where she called out the Black gentleman in the park in New York for him calling out her having her dogs off of the leash, and the reaction was swift, and she wound up losing her job because of the how outspoken people were and the backlash. And actually, the young man said that I don't even think that she actually should have been canceled. She, this was a moment in time. She's accountable for it, but I don't think that she should necessarily, have been fired from her job. So, I think it's important to think about, it doesn't necessarily have to go to being canceled, but people still need to be called out for what they're doing wrong. And she, that was racism that led her actions that day. So there's, as much as we don't want to cancel, or we may want to cancel culture, it also doesn't mean you get to get away with doing wrong either.
The judge and the jury has spoken. You cannot get away. The internet is undefeated.
Yeah,
if you can.
I think that's such a good word. Is the accountability piece is what we want to hold on to. It's like, but how do you hold people accountable without repercussions? And we see nationwide, generally people want that repercussion to be ending that person's livelihood, which is so unfortunate that's like what it's taken to. But I love that word, accountability.
Absolutely. If you just jumped in, this is Black People versus Cancel Culture. We have Camille with Montage PR and also Whitney Stringer of Whitney Stringer PR chiming into the conversation, as well as Craig, Jewel, Chris, Jessica. I can't name everybody, but everybody, thank you for your comments and thank you for hanging out. Do us a favor, share it, because somebody doesn't know what cancel culture is. When we share, we're stronger. If you didn't know, the Afro-American newspaper is 129 years old, older than most of us on this broadcast today. And for over those amount of years, we have not been controlled by any other voice. We've been offered to be bought so that they could muzzle us and cancel our culture. But we said no, and we're never going to sell. But the only way that we continue to print our legacy edition and to broadcast things that impact our community is if you subscribe to our legacy edition. Or yes, we do have a digital edition. Of course, you are watching us right now. We even have a way that you could text the word Afro right now, 410-936-5002, and stay in the loop. Stop just saying, oh yeah, I support Black, and then you don't. And then you wonder why there's no balance or what's the true voice, because you don't. You cancel it, but you say you don't cancel it. But if this is resonating with you for less than 2 Uber Eats, $40, you're in there for the whole year, supporting an institution and an organization and a legacy, legendary place in the African-American community. We're going on 130 years. Ladies, you're going to be invited, Camille and Whitney, to the 130th. It's going to be a big deal. Anyway, and all of you guys out there also, hopefully, it depends on how many tickets can fit into place and where we are in this pandemic. But let's get back to this conversation, cancel culture.
We had 2 questions that I thought were worthy.
All right, tell me what you're talking about.
The quick one I think we should at least note is, I think Lenora asked about Monique and would Monique be an example of cancel culture. But she's been, so my understanding, and I'd love Whitney and Camille's opinion, but I think that Monique first at least alleges that she was canceled by Hollywood first, which is different than cancel culture, because she says that it was Hollywood who stopped her from getting gigs, who stopped her from rising further than she had post winning the Oscar. However, I would say that social media has worked a bit to cancel her, particularly this year, for some comments that she's made. Even when she alleged that she was canceled by Hollywood, there were people who were telling her to take several seats and stop complaining and get your money, girl, and stop talking. But here recently, I think people have worked to cancel her. I don't think it's been a successful cancel, quite frankly. But I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on the Monique issue. Then while we have it, the longer question, which was Dana's, let's see if I can find it, was about the Issa Rae Insecure issue in conjunction with the AKAs. And is that a part of cancel culture? And I'd love to hear you guys' opinions on both. So sorry, it's a loaded question, but Monique, Issa Rae, it's all Hollywood.
That's a whole nother show that Chris said. You're absolutely right. And we're going to do it because it's time to talk about it. But let's touch on it gently today without getting so cancelly.
I definitely say with Monique, I fear, I fear discussing this because I think that it brings up, at least for me, a bigger issue, and that's protecting Black women, right? I think that with Monique, her issue was simply calling out the industry because of pay inequity, right? She was simply not getting paid as much as the Dave Chappelles that were on Netflix, as her counterparts. And she was literally bringing this up so that people were aware and to demand her worth. And I don't see anything wrong with that, right? But I think that it's the blackball of it all. The fact that these machines behind the industry have the ability to literally silence your career. We saw it also with Kevin Hart, when he failed to do red carpet appearances for a particular movie. I'm not really remembering what movie or promotion it was at the time. And the industry didn't like it. So they attempted to cancel, his reputation. So I find it interesting to, it's like, where's the system? Where's the check and balances at where do we see, oh, well, this person can be canceled, or how long does the cancel last for? Like, are there parameters to the cancel culture, right? Or can some people be canceled or not? You know, bringing in the Dave Chappelle conversation, I believe that he can't be canceled because that man was merely speaking his truth. You know, he did a stand-up show about his human experience. He brought up, his friend Daphne, who was a member of the LGBTQ community, So that's where I feel like it's a gray area. When are we allowed to simply stand up for what we believe in? We were
Absolutely.
raising this question earlier. So with Monique, I feel like it's definitely tricky. So every time someone says, something we don't like, is it the privilege of it all or the entitlement? I feel like we're now this society that's like entitled or wants to exercise some type of privilege. You know what I mean? And I worry about that. Even Donald Trump, for instance, right? Now he's going to create his own new social media network because he's been banished, from Twitter and from Instagram because he was spewing misinformation. So I just feel like we're almost going down. It's going more so to the negative than it is to the positive. And again, making us more divisive.
Absolutely. I'm just going to jump in and end this since you started with Monique. And me being in the entertainment business, for those who don't know, my other job is I've been managing Drew Hill since they were 14 years old. So I've been dealing with the comments and the opinions and how everybody gets behind their keyboard and says whatever they want to say. But as for Monique, it's hard to say what is fair and equitable as far as pay, right? Because every artist has a different draw, has a different amount of star power, has a different amount of wow effect, right? And just because you found out what another artist made doesn't mean that just because in your mind you think that you should have it. You understand what I'm saying? I'd like to have Michael Jackson money for Drew Hill, but I'm not gonna get up here and say Michael Jackson got 10 million a show and I want, so when does it come, especially when you're already considered successful and wealthy, when does it become, where's that gray area coming? I know Monique, she's from Baltimore. I know her husband, we used to play basketball when we were little, all of that good old stuff, but what was it? How can you compare Lamar Jackson's salary to somebody who's a second string NFL quarterback? You really can't, you know what I'm saying? But you can get on this platform and say, hey, I think I should. But in reality, you're not him.
Let me take another angle on that though, Kevin. Here's what I think we're talking about cancel culture. So she had a right to file the suit. The judge ruled that it could be heard. That was her right as an individual entertainer. But when we put this together with the conversation that we're having now, does the culture have a right to weigh in on that particular matter between Monique and Netflix to influence the outcome one way or the other? And so we as a culture now feel that we have the right to weigh in on anything and everything that people say and then inform the outcome.
After that employee leaked what Dave Chappelle got per episode, not only were Black people upset about what they got paid on the Netflix, but also a bunch of white folks were like, wait a minute, I only got X, Y, Z. But you get what you negotiate. If you agree on it at the moment and you say, okay, I agree on it, you can't get mad at someone else.
Absolutely not. So how much skin do I have in the game to influence it?
Absolutely. I don't know. I think some people
like
to talk just to be talking. Anyway, this is Black people versus cancel culture. And I think a lot of people are still trying to get their 5 minutes of fame on the internet, without doing the work. These ladies, Camille and Whitney, have put in the time. You can't just all of a sudden start making comments and think you're going to be running a PR agency. It just doesn't work like that. There's no shortcuts in this entertainment business. There's no shortcuts in this newspaper media business. There's no shortcuts in anything that you have become professional in, that you're getting paid because you add value to the marketplace. If I empty trash and I wonder why I'm not getting paid as a brain surgeon, it's not because of my personality. It's just because of the value that I add to the marketplace. Anyway, I'm off the box, y'all. So let's get back to it. Let's get to this Dave Chappelle in these last 15 minutes. I think that's the biggest chatter right now. Whitney, chime in, so let's get it started. Did you watch this? Did you watch the entire special?
I did watch the special. I also think, in this conversation that a lot of times what people do is they weigh in before they read their Afro article, before they listen to the podcast, before they watch the segment, and then want to form opinions when they haven't even seen the totality of the work or whatever the topic is at hand. So I do think that that's something that we all can strive to do better, not just reacting to headlines and what comments are. Like, go to the source and go to multiple voices about it before, making a quick decision. So I did decide to watch to watch the special and to form my opinion based on what I watched, just not what other people were commenting or the clickbait headlines. And, I do think that people were quick to make decisions about what he said without being able to look at the totality of what he was talking about. I think he makes really valid points. He is a comedian and that's what they do. They call out, they make fun of. And I think if you saw the whole brevity, if you saw the whole show, then you can see that he really wasn't being inflammatory against the community. He instead was talking about his journey with understanding that community and getting to a place where he had respect for them, but also saying there's also some things in which this community should be called accountable. And so I do not think that it was the right thing for people to cancel him. I also think that, he was saying that there were calls for him to go in and have discussions with employees at the Netflix employees, and he said that actually didn't happen. And so I don't know if we ever got clarity on whether that actually happened or not, but I for sure think that there should be conversations and not just this quick knee-jerk reactions.
Absolutely. Camille? What do you think?
I did see the stand-up special. I'm a huge follower of Dave Chappelle. I think that he rattles us in just the right way, so that we can have, these hard conversations, but they're imperative, in us functioning as society together. Unfortunately, I rushed to watch it because I saw the headlines and I said, I need to go watch this before they take it down, for fear that he was going to be silent. So that's why I rushed over and I needed to watch it immediately to see for myself what it was all about. And I'm glad that I did. I don't think that everyone has the same experience, as Black culture. These are often conversations that we have. We call them kitchen table talk, right? This is what happens in Black families where we kind of have to digest our day and we have to talk about, the things that were harmful that happened towards us. And I think that this was Dave Chappelle's way of bringing it to the forefront, bringing it to the table, because he has a mixed audience, of his following. So this was a great way of him to shine light on what I believe was the systematic racism of it all. I think that he was still trying to show that there are still levels, there's still hierarchy to respect. And at the end of the day, being a Black man, being Black people, we're still considered less, and I think that that's what he was trying to shine a light on, that at the end of the day, and I'm sorry to say this, that he feels as a Black man in Hollywood that there are certain groups and classes of people that get preferential treatment over African Americans. And that, again, is his experience as a person in that industry, right? So that's what I'm afraid of, is immediately I felt as though they were trying to cancel another Black man, and I had a problem with that.
Absolutely. It's the invisible bully slavery still mentality. If you don't fit into this box, if you don't act like we expect you to act or like we want you to act, then in fact you are. So the Hollywood conversation is another conversation, ladies. You guys are now signed up to come on for part 2.
It might be next week because Jessica done asked for it already in the comments to have a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's real. And here's the problem: with our billions of dollars that we have for income that we spend on everybody else, we have to develop our own networks. We have to have our own distribution channels. We have to have things that allow for us to thrive outside of their system. Because as long as we, like right now, if in fact Facebook said, "Oh my God, I don't want you guys talking about this," they would cut the broadcast, right? They would and where are we? Okay, we're on that platform. Not that you want it to be such a black and white issue, but it becomes a black and white issue because it seems that everything else, every other community, pets are more important than black people. I'm telling you, Michael Vick, he got canceled for a fight that happened at his house. Okay, that he wasn't there. Maybe he condoned it, maybe he didn't, but we all know what he went through, and we all know what Dave spoke about. If you saw the closer when he said that there was more care and attention placed on, I have so many letters, I'm not even gonna say them, that other community, that it's nowhere near the same amount of care placed on the lives of black people, especially it seems to be black men, but black women as well. But I'm just gonna say, as a race, you know what I mean? And so the line has to be drawn. You know, do you buy into the cancel culture? Do you pile onto the cancel culture? Or do you, so we use this word woke, do we wake up and say, okay, we need to own more things? We need to come together more. We need to, because black people, they're the first to cancel you, especially in the music business. They'll tell you your career is over in the United States and you should be working at Walmart, but you go overseas, like Tina Turner and those people, and they love you forever. They still respect and revere your body of work as an artist. But here, you've been canceled by our own community. So we're stepping on our own, and we don't even realize it. And that may be because maybe some hurt is in there. Charlie, Craig, Antoine, Natasha, everybody, Nicole, thank you for tuning in. It's coming on out. Dave Chappelle, we're still talking about it. It was the closer on Netflix. If you missed it, don't just watch an excerpt on YouTube. Watch the whole thing. Since when do we become so sensitive? That's my question. Whitney, when do we become so sensitive?
I don't have the answer for that. I don't know when we became so sensitive, but I think we should cancel being so sensitive. That's what I think we should do.
I'm just saying, because comedians have been coming at presidents. I mean, you would have think that, or thought that all the presidents that got talked about by all, I mean, I heard, did you see Bill Burr, or was it Bill Burr? I can't remember his name, but he was just talking about white women bad. He said, white women, you trying to hijack the black movement. You try to hijack everything, and he went on and he called white women bees and did all, I don't know if they canceled him or not, but he went in a comedic way, as comedians do. But when do you become so sensitized to, what do you think, Dr. Draver, when do you become so sensitive? Or when do we as a culture, not you, I know you tough, you pledged back in the day, you know what I mean, when you had to pledge.
But we as a culture, we've been sensitive. The thing is, we have allowed people to say things about us, and not push back as strongly as we should. And back on that conversation around comedians, I watch Stephen Colbert all the time. He says all kinds of stuff, and doesn't get censored. I recently, y'all don't judge me. I went back and listened to some old Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor would be canceled for sure, right? So social media has put a different spin on it. But speaking of that, this is a whole new show to talk about, not today. There are certain headlines that if we put them out, when you put black in the headline of certain stories on social media, do you know they get censored? So there's a whole lot of racism and structural racism around that, right?
Would you believe Afro? I used Afro.
Right, and you get censored for that.
Come on.
So if we want to push back on something, we ought to be pushing back on the pushback against critical race theory. They can put a name to it, but really we don't want to teach, folk don't want us to teach Black history. So the whole lot of things we ought to be canceling and things that we want to make sure come out there. Yeah, you are so right, Camille. You put Afro in a story. So the name of our business is Afro. It's been there for 130 years, right? But there's certain, I contend that's why we don't have our blue check on Instagram, even though we have over 11,000 followers, or on Twitter because of that. And we had somebody tell us we were too Black. That's another whole show.
Hello, somebody. People are so sensitive. Jessica, you're completely right. You know, Ralph Tresvant had a song, "Need a Man with Sensitivity." I don't know if that's gonna work these days, but I think we get distracted about the small things and we miss the big picture. The whole thing is always a distraction. Go ahead, Camille, jump in.
I have a quick question. I wonder if this is a Gen Z thing, right? Because for millennials, it was all about being PC, right? We knew not to teeter-totter. We knew what was acceptable, what was, what you should and shouldn't say in public. But I feel like it's a generational thing. And we've seen Gen Z really stand up, when it came to the Trump campaign and not showing up and, stopping ticket sales for his rallies, right? So they're the most active generation, at least in terms of as far as social media is concerned. But I wonder if that was kind of like the rise of this kind of sensitivity. And it almost makes me, here I'm using the word fear again, but fear for their future, when it comes to, toxicity and mental health, and anti-bullying.
I definitely would say that Gen Z is far more sensitive than we are as millennials. I mean, part of it, going back to that word woke, is that they contend that they're far more woke, right? The fact that they have been very much so involved, if not the leaders of many of the movements that we've had here recently, I think shows that they definitely care about issues. But specifically, going back to Dave Chappelle's attempt at cancellation, which directly relates to the LGBTQ community, is that I would like to say I'm far from homophobic or transphobic, but my nieces and nephews consistently tell me I'm using the wrong term and what you shouldn't say. And I'm conscious about pronouns and all of that, you know what I mean? But they are Gen Z. And I think part of it is that they went to school with people, right, who are trans, right? I never experienced that even. And I was a theater major, I had tons of gay friends and things like that. But they are in a different they've been exposed to other things, grown up in an educational or institutionalized setting, if you will, and thus sort of have a higher sensitivity or maybe level of wokeness, if you will, that then I think leads to how they deal with stuff, which is going to the internet, calling folks out, canceling them. I mean, that's, again, social media has been completely a part of their institutional experience. And so thus, I think it completely, Camille, absolutely. Any Gen Zers on here, don't be offended, but I think they are more sensitive than we are. And I think that's not a negative thing necessarily. But it has it has sort of scooped us all into the world of having to deal with the social media implications and the mental health implications that come from canceling.
Absolutely. I don't know. Do we have time for Afro fact? We might have to save it for next week because we are running on the hour and we respect everybody's time. And guess what, though? We can't go over 2 minutes because it's our broadcast and it's not another show pushing us out the door. This has been a fantastic conversation. Black people versus cancel culture. Some people learn what cancel culture is. Some people have experienced it. Some people say maybe it's the Gen Z. I like that point because I have Gen Zers in my house. But I'm not tiptoeing around them. But I get to the point where, and some of the Gen Zers feel they can say anything to adults that they want to say, and because they think they have the right. And I said, you have the right when you are in your own house and you paying your own bills. Now give me that phone. Anyway, so as we go forward, let's jump on the box real quick and just, this is the Chicken Boxx. All right, here we go. guys. This is what it is, just in case. All right, and just change your mind about cancel culture right now. In case you're a little hungry, that's 4 wings and fries. That's the Chicken Boxx. Anyway, if you're ever in Baltimore, get a Chicken Boxx, throw some hot pepper ketchup, hot sauce on it, and we can keep moving. But final words for this week on cancel culture, we have our experts from Whitney Stringer PR and also from Untitled PR, Camille and Whitney. Thank you for joining and sharing with us. All right, you can get on the box. You can talk about cancel. You can talk about whatever you want for your 30 seconds on the box. Let's go. Whitney.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I think this conversation is one that is, it's needs some added visibility. Again, my parting words are, I think in general, people make decisions too quickly without taking the time to read the facts, to speak to people, to read the Afro, to get the total information. So I would encourage myself, encourage all of us, before we're quick to make facts and make quick decisions, take the time to really see what's going on, speak to other people, try to get other perspectives before making conclusions on your own.
There you go. Try to get some other perspectives. Just take 30 seconds. That's just like when you're arguing with somebody. Just take a deep breath before you say something that really is just. And we didn't get into how long do you have? Is your 10-year ago self the same as yourself now? You know what I mean? What you did in high school, is that how you are now? And who gets to not forgive you for that long? Anyway, Camille.
I love that. I really feel like Black Lives Matter and the Black Lives Matter movement really, sparked this, this trail for us to stand up for ourselves and what we believe in and hold people accountable and know who are we aligning with. Are the companies that we support, do we have a value match there? I feel like it's very important to hold our organizations accountable and unmask, that hidden racism. But let's also remember how detrimental that this could be. And I almost fear that we are using cancel culture as a way to play out, the downward spiral of our favorite celebrities. It's almost entertaining to watch them, deteriorate in their fame, be snatched away from them. So I almost fear where social media is going, that we love to watch this play out in front of us.
That's considered a hater's disease. You need to get a shot for that and a booster and then another shot after that. Anyway, Dr. Draper.
My real hope is that people will understand their own value, that will teach people who they are and whose they are. And you know what? I'm entitled to my opinion, and you can't cancel me out. Now, I know I'm not a celebrity, but you cannot cancel me out. The problem that a lot of us have is that we are to let other people define who we are. And even in the celebrity world. So hopefully, we'll all be sensitive to the differences in people and we respect people. However, I'm entitled to my opinion. You're entitled to your opinion, and we don't have to cancel each other out. We got to learn how to talk to one another. There are a whole lot of things, especially in the Black community, that we ought to be concerned about. A whole lot of things. I applaud these young ladies for your business. I hope your businesses grow beyond your imagination. We ought to be talking about supporting Black businesses, supporting young people, not complaining about them, but helping them to understand that there is more to life than social media. Social media is a mechanism, but it doesn't define who you are.
Boom. You're off the box, Misha Green. We should shut the show down with that one. Go ahead.
I know. I wish I wasn't ending off. Okay, so our Afro fact has been requested, so I'm gonna read the Afro fact. And excuse me, I'm doing it on my phone, but y'all know the internet can be funny when we're trying to give information, so I don't want to switch screens. So that's the first thing. The only quick thing I'll say about this is why we need you guys coming in and sharing your opinions, because it sounds like we need a part 2. We absolutely need a part 2 on this issue. We have questions that were unanswered, like Dana's great one about the AKAs and Insecure and people now, is it just the sorority trying to cancel AKA, Insecure and Issa Rae, or is the culture supporting it? And so those are the kinds of things that I think we need to talk about. I have a whole list of celebrities who have been canceled just in the past year. And let me share, The good thing is most of them are not Black people. So we can say that our folks have been making us proud for the most part this year. But there's some that the internet really are still seething and angry at. So we definitely need a part 2. This is exactly why we want you all to go in the comments and share your thoughts and opinions, and we appreciate the engagement. That said, this week's Afro Fact is inspired by the October 27th, 1984 edition. The headline read, Nobel Peace Prize winner Bishop Tutu. In the article, it says that Bishop Tutu returned to South Africa with a hero's welcome, with Black and white supporters singing Black nationalist anthems and carrying signs saying, apartheid, goodbye to you. And Bishop Tutu had a little something to say about his time in the United States. So here it is. America is seen as a country for which human rights is not important. If you are government opposed to communism, your human rights do not matter. That's what Bishop Tutu thought about us 37 years ago. So it'd be interesting to hear what folks have to say about Bishop Tutu's comment for sure. But that is this week's Afro Fact. And I just really appreciate Whitney and Camille for sharing your expertise. The people have spoken. We have to do a part 2. So if you're available, please come and join us. But we really appreciate your time today. And thank you for all you do out in the world and for the Afro.
And before we go, I'm getting on the box. Like, I know I'm a gentleman. I let all the ladies go first. But I want to say, good thing God doesn't cancel you. Right? Because it said everybody has fallen short. Everybody who believes, I'm not going to say that you believe, just stay with me. If you believe, God has forgiven through everything that you've done. And it's a good thing that he doesn't cancel. And so when you need to find some strength and to build yourself up, seek him, not the internet, not what your friend says. You can't believe if your friend says you can't start your own PR firm, that doesn't mean you can't start it. What do you believe about yourself? Whose words do you listen to? As a matter of fact, do you even affirm yourself daily? Do you tell yourself that you're wonderful, amazing, a great learner? Do you even know what an affirmation is? If you don't, Google it and get your affirmation. I don't care if this is one line, one sentence, a paragraph. Record it. Listen to it in your own voice. Take some time for you, because the only one that can cancel you is you. And in what you believe in. So get your mind right. Everybody who knows me, that's one of my biggest things. Get your mind together. Get it out of everybody else's opinion, because it's like everything else. And let's move forward as one people. Not that we're against any other people, but we are together as African Americans, and we need to combine our collective positive thoughts and move this culture forward. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week, because guess what the topic is? Cancel culture part 2. All right. We'll come up with something else, Black Hollywood, whatever you guys want to talk about. I love the conversation. Until we meet again. And if you need some PR, Camille and Whitney, they're in the DMV area, but I'm sure they take clients all over the world. We'll be glad for you to connect with them. That's Montage P&R and Whitney Stringer P&R and PNR. PR. I don't know why I wanted to say P&R, because that's our music thing, A&R. Anyway, they're totally different things, but artists do need PR. So your business needs PR, your brand needs PR, and these are the ladies who can get it done. So until next week, have a blessed day. They say God willing, because you don't know if you're going to wake up in the morning. So be kind to somebody and don't jump on the bandwagon without doing a little research. Have a great day, everybody.